you spent a lot of time in exile. You spent a lot of time incarcerated. You've been locked up in various prisons, I'm assuming. Robben Island obviously being the longest stint that you've done, which was a 10-year lockdown.
Yes.
Can you share with us one or two funny stories, one or two serious stories of your time, either in exile or in prison, that people may not know? I know you've told a lot of stories, but people haven't heard these stories in the public. If you need me to remind me of one or two that I found funny, that maybe you need my help in in making recommendations, then I'll do so.
Yeah, you can remind me if you remember some.
There's a one story that you've told us about a prison cell, and so basically the Russell story.
Oh, the Russell story. Well, there are too many, but I can tell a few.
Please do.
When we got arrested, it happened. A bit of it in Robben Island, and of course in exile as well. Now, when we got arrested in 1963, under the law which was known as the 90 days detention, right? 2 months. You were arrested, and there was no contact with anyone except the investigators, the police.
Yes.
This was by law. If they are not finished with you, at the end of 90 days, they could extend it and then give you another 90 days. It could be repeated as many times.
Okay.
So when we were arrested, leaving aside torture, whatever, one of the interesting things that, because South Africa is South Africa, was the fact that I did not know Afrikaans, because where I came from in Durban, Afrikaans was not the main language or the more common language, except in the mountains up there, Vryheid, Newcastle, whatever.
Yes.
So two things happened. Firstly, I was working with my two cousins in Durban. I was a youth league worker, very militant. So both of them knew Afrikaans. One had studied it, one learned it from the farms where he was working. So they were talking about this. We're going along Mgeni Road and then across to a hostel called MC. So they speak Afrikaans. So I said to them, look, guys, man, you don't want to walk with me? I can't hear you are busy speaking Afrikaans. They say, hey, you are a freedom fighter. You might need this Afrikaans one day, because you are fighting your enemies, speak Afrikaans. I said, never, who, me? Afrikaans, sorry. Until I was detained in Pretoria. From the police station where we were detained, we were collected to the main prison, New Log prison in Pretoria. I was then put in a small cell, and this Afrikaner warder was saying something, and I did not hear a word, and I did not care for that matter. I was just looking at this fellow, talking and pointing in the cell, just looking without understanding what he was saying. So they closed the door and left. So I sat down, there was some stoop there. And they opened the door afterwards, and I stood up just out of respect, not because I knew you need to stand up when they open the door.
Yes.
And they said to me, Gaffer, where is your karki? Huh? Where is your karki? I said, No, firstly, I said, no, I don't understand Afrikaans. I said, "Varia tua karki." So I realized that an Englishman, blah, blah. So I said, this chap are looking for khaki. I'm wearing a silver gray trousers, you know.
He's saying karki meaning card, and you thought he was wearing, it was, he was mentioning the color of your pants.
Really asking, where is your card? But I
what
never
is your karki? Okay.
The khaki.
Okay.
So, where is your khaki? I said, well, the chap does not understand. So they beat me serious now. This is serious. And they went back. Kafan, where is your khaki? So I tried to say in Zulu, spoon. Man, I'm looking around, I'm wondering. Second time, they moved back. Third time, they were to come back for the fourth time. This chap, they're even saying, their time. So I said, man, when I was in the reception, I was given a card, just literally guessing, which was in my pocket. So I took it out. So as soon as I took it out, this fellow said, moi, kafir, moi. You know, I was never taught these two words by any teacher. I understood what this fellow said because I've been beaten up thoroughly. Oh. So I said, okay. And then from there, they called it, I was just now to come and interpret.
Yes.
And they speak in Afrikaans. Now I'm in attention, very serious. And then when this chap wants to interpret, he starts speaking in Sotho. And I knew not a word of Sotho. So as soon as he started, I said, sorry, sir. Sorry, I don't understand Sotho either. And the fellow was speaking not a broken Zulu, a Zulu that is literally creeping. Couldn't hear much. I said, man, if this is what is going to happen when I hear, I'm going to be beaten all the time. Fortunately, on the same evening, we were rearranged, so I went to sit with other comrades in another cell. It's all fine. The rest of us did not understand Afrikaans, except two comrades, which was Lombard Mbata, who was our commander, and then Andrew Mlangen, who's an old man now, who could speak Afrikaans. So we used to make a lot of noise until we learned how to handle ourselves. Many things happened there, but one of them was when we had studied the warders, that they opened many gates. You could hear when they opened the first gate, we make noise and we all keep quiet in the cells, many cells. So they did not know how to catch us until an old man who was working there, I had given him a nickname, Kanda Kanda, because he walked like a tractor. So I called him a tractor, Kanda Kanda.
Okay.
So he decided to catch us one day. And he swung the keys as if he was opening the gates and closing. And he was merely just swinging the key without putting it there. So we started making noise. Bah, bah, bah. So he just opened the doors slowly, one close, come, until he got into our door. When he got into our door, he put the key slowly. We did not notice. All what we saw was the door opening. And as he opened the door, he asked in Afrikaans, "Vima grasiso, huh? Vima grasiso." And a fellow from Cape Town, a comrade. So he goes forward. He says, "Yes, sir. I'm Russell, sir." He says, "Fra Vima grasiso." He says, "Yes, sir. Russell is my name, sir." Now his name was Russell. Now he did not understand Afrikaans, this fellow was asking, who is making noise about in Africans?
Yes.
So when this fellow was asking for the third time, he turned around to one fellow, the only one fellow who knew Afrikaans. He says, hey, comrade, but little bull. And but I just kept quiet because he did not want to answer because we are going to be punished. And this water was so powerful that I'm asking this chap who make noise there, he tells me his name is Russell. These two things are not together. Then this fellow got defeated. He then said, Nema, and closed the door. When he closed the door, the fellow who knew Afrikaans just fell off. He nearly died with laughter. Because we say, but why are you laughing? What else? He says, this water is asking who's making noise. Russell is saying, is me, I'm noise. My name is noise. I mean, you had such kind of things that times happen in prison. There are many other things we could talk about. But it told me, as I remembered, when I was being beaten, that meant you have to know the languages. Very important. It's an advantage to know languages than not to know. You can't call Afrikaans is not. I mean, at that time, because even my knowledge of knowing Afrikaans was very limited.
Yeah.
I thought only the Afrikaners speak Afrikaans. I did not know that a lot of South Africans, colored in particular, speak Afrikaans.
Yes.
And so, in any case, it is important for people who have an advantage that must learn languages, etc. So one of the things, of course, you learn too many lessons if you get involved in those kind of things. For an example, when from there we went to Robben Island. Robben Island, many things, you can tell many stories there, absolutely too many to tell, but one which you can laugh about, when we're being beaten up,
yeah.
As we arrived in Robben Island and we're being told this is a blue hell, one water told us, if we are coming from prisoners that are called Roy Hell or whatever, this is blue hell. And we'll say, hey, we don't know what's going to happen here. And the following day, we're being beaten up. I'm telling you, I've never such beating. It was about 30 minutes. It looked like the whole day. And one of our colleagues, his name was Babenia.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I missed that. One of your...
Our comrades was an Indian comrade from Durban. His name was Babenia. Okay. When we were being beaten up, he was very clever. He thought, man, I must find a way to get out of this beating. So he went to one water and just stood straight and said, say, I'm exhausted, say. This water said, I'm exhausted, sir. Now the water gave him a clap. You know, a clap, at times your face moves, whatever. He was like a wood. Whoop, and he went just straight. And he pretended he's dying. They ran to get buckets of water to put. But what he did succeed to do was to get out of the beating. Well, they took him out. This was too weak. He's going to die. So you can get many, many other stories.
No, thank you very much for that one. Thank you. That's one I've heard parts of it, not the whole story as you put it. So
yeah,
it was entertaining, some entertaining bits, but also scary. And it just reminds us of a time that existed.
It was tough.
And
It was very tough.
Yeah, at a tough time that existed. And at any time did you ever think that you would see the day that South Africa would be free? That South Africa would be liberated as per what you'd been taught and the journey that you were on?
Absolutely. I think that was very crucial to us.
And what kept you going? Because that would be very important to some of us. What kept you going? As you're answering the question, what kept you positive in thinking that you're going to achieve the goal?
Yeah. Well, firstly, we were very positive that we were going to get our freedom. There had been very few countries that would have taken too long to fight for their freedom. The trend in Africa had been that many countries had been liberated, others without fighting, others were fighting. We were very determined. I can tell you, as the judge pronounced the judgments against us, in our case, we were saying and sitting there, when we heard some of us had sentenced to 10 years, we said, he will do that 10 years himself, not us. We'll be free by that time. That was the enthusiasm we had. We went, because in Africa, I think the person who had served longer was President Lumumba. Sorry, not Lumumba. President Kenyatta, rather, who had been arrested and sentenced to 5 years. No one ever thought you could do more than that. But even when we went to Robben Island, particularly because we had now MK, we had comrades who had gone out of the country, who had trained, we always knew they would come back and fight and defeat these guys. So we would never finish 10 years. So the hope was always there. But of course, we ended up finishing 5 years and then finishing 7 and becoming clear that we are finishing 10. So yes, 10, even when we left Robben Island, we knew that it's a matter of time. That is why when we were out in 1974, we actually received a note from President Mandela from prison, still urging and encouraging us that you guys who have been here, you know how it looks like. We trust that you will continue. And that's why we're still burning to fight. And that's why when we came out, we helped the ANC to re-establish, to extend the underground work and underground membership. And we linked up with the outside immediately and did what we did. And I think that's the reason why thereafter, rather than to be arrested again, I felt it was better to leave the country, which I not thought I would do. I thought I would hide inside the country. But it was important to have a space to fight. So we're always courageous, always thinking it's going to go. In fact, we finished many years in no time because we did not feel the time. For an example, on Robben Island, it was 10 years, 6 months if you include detention and trial. Outside, it was 14 and a half years. I didn't feel it because I was so busy. And indeed, we liberated ourselves in no time. So the hope and the understanding and the determination of the freedom fighters was very big than those who were not freedom fighters, who at times thought that we would never defeat. Some people were telling us we never defeat the Afrikaners, were too strong. But we knew we would. How? I think that was a matter of the real concrete conditions that we'll have to deal with.
Yeah, I'm sure you lost many a brave soldier, male and female, over that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In the process,
a lot of unsung heroes. Yeah.
In the process, many of our brave comrades were lost. And our generation were ready to fight. I mean, we start with those who were sentenced to death in the 60s, coming from MK, and they went to the gallows with all the enthusiasm, ready to serve with everything, including your life. We also had the Lutuli detachment that went out for the first time. Brave soldiers, many of whom, or some of whom died in the battles and also made their mark. But we also had the Soweto generation, etc. You had young people, you had people who were sentenced to death and who were indeed hanged, and some to life. So not that struggling, I'm saying we were excited and ready to die because it was nice. It was serious, very serious. That's why it was not everyone who was part of it. Others who had an opportunity to do so didn't do it because it was too much for them. It was really sacrifice. It was something. That's why for some of us, the bravery of our soldiers against a very big enemy was something to admire if you were one of them. You were a freedom fighter or you were being commanded by those who were leading us. I mean, we talk today as if it was just like running across the mountain. It was a serious matter.
Okay, no, that is that is an interesting viewpoint. Thank you very much for that. Just leading on from what you were saying, you were sentenced to 10 years. You thought you'd do 5. You're no stranger to the criminal justice system. I mean, that was way back in the 60s, 70s. We are now in the 2000s, and you face very similar conditions, judicially speaking. You've been accused of many things over your lifetime, of being a terrorist, aiding and abetting a terrorist movement. You've been accused of corruption. You've been accused of rape. You've been accused of pillaging and plundering the South African economy. And we sit here today, so you're no stranger to legal matters, if I may say that. An interesting event occurred a few days ago, and this is to do with a current legal matter that you're dealing with, and that's your decision to take your corruption, your arms deal corruption case head on, where that hadn't been the approach for many years, for whatever reason. You said you're not afraid of going to prison because you've been there before. It doesn't scare you. What is your stance now? Speaking from you being my father to a son, because I need to understand this. Just in case I don't have the opportunity to speak to you about this ever. What is your stance on the way you've been treated?
Yes, yes, I am no stranger to facing the law. I'm no stranger facing the law. I think the difference though, is that when I faced the law in my young age, as a freedom fighter, as a revolutionary, as an oppressed person in South Africa, I knew exactly that what I was doing was a justified cause. And I was ready for anything, not just fighting only. We took an oath in MK. We're ready to fight if need be, as it was very clearly articulated by our leader, Ubaba Nelson Mandela. So when you were arrested, when you were tortured, when you were called all names like terrorist or Mapegula Skuni, as I put it in Zulu, we were all saying we are paying the price for our taking a decision to fight to liberate our country and its people. Even those who ended up in the gallows, they went there, many of them singing, because it was important for us to do so. Important that we encourage those who would be very far and those who were behind us. And even that's why when the Judge Stein in Pretoria pronounced the sentence to me that you will serve 10 years, we could say it quietly without telling him that you will serve by another 10 years. Because we knew the victory was there. And even if I stayed in prison for a long time, I never regretted that I became part of the struggle. Even when I left the country, I operated from outside. I took risks to enter the country, deep into the country and out, where if I was found, I would be killed. I knew this was a sacrifice necessary to liberate our country. The difference is that that was apartheid state with apartheid laws, unjust, everybody knowing. The attitude of the judges was known then, that if you appear before the judge, they hated you because you were a terrorist. What is different now is that having fought for freedom, for democracy, for justice, I feel justice at the moment in our country is a problem. It is very scary that today, as I face justice, I have a very feeling which I think is correct, that there are certain courts that when I appear or my matter appears, the attitude is almost exactly the same as it was that I went through as a freedom fighter during apartheid time, and now as a free man during the democratic time. It's almost a given in the country that people will tell you, if you went to certain courts, Jacob Zuma cannot win a case. Some, unfortunately, have pronounced, some people in the judiciary, that Zuma will never win a case in my court. It's a sad thing that in a free country that you fought for, you must feel you are in a same situation as it were. I have been called names as in my democratic time as I was in the apartheid system. I was called a terrorist. I was called a Pegula's Kuni, everything. Unjustly, because I was fighting for justice. In a free and democratic South Africa, I've been called the most corrupt person. But nobody has presented evidence to say this is what we say, why we say Zuma is corrupt. But the media, during apartheid, ill-treated us, called us names. And the media calls some of us names today. You know, for an example, there was a halabaloo about Nkandla.
Sorry, about which place?
About my home state in Nkandla.
Oh, Nkandla, okay. Nkandla. Sorry, I couldn't help it. I had to say it.
There was a everybody knows, huge headlines about so much Zuma has eaten this money. There were 3 investigating teams investigating that matter from government. The third one was, in fact, a very hostile public protector to me. Even that one found that I did nothing to steal money. Nothing. Which surprised everyone. But my name had been dragged through international forums and everywhere. The most corrupt man. But they investigated here, they found nothing. What finally was said was that even if the security features that were recommended by the police and the army, that they did, the public protector could only say, I and my family, I indirectly benefited. That was the only finding that was made. But just look how my name had been dragged and destroyed by a democratic and justice kind of society that I believe I've fought for. That is unfortunate, that I find myself being named as I was named by the racists, that I was a terrorist when I was not, when I was fighting for the freedom of South Africa. As you know, I never participated in the arms deal. I was an MEC in the province KZN. But all people who participated in the arms deal are free, comfortable, nothing. I have been singled out as the most corrupt, and I've said, where is the evidence? Again, and that's the reason why, instead of dealing with a number of appeals and permanent stay, etc., I felt, let me go to trial so that we can find where is this corruption. Again, there is what is called, which is ongoing as well, the state capture. In fact, the the commission was established specifically for me to deal with me. And I've been listening. It's almost over a year now. Nobody has said, here was Zuma and the state capture. That has made me.
Which Zuma? Because they've also had me out there.
How did they do Duduzane Zuma?
No.
Of course, the splinters in a way. This has worried me a great deal as to what type of society are we talking about. Are we so different from how those in authority handled us during apartheid than those in authority today? Even some judges, and I can quote the Chief Justice, who has complained himself about his own judiciary. We are therefore in trouble because people who hate you, who have agendas against you, I found that the law, the system, the judiciary, some people are using it. So, in a sense, much as I'm happy that we are free, etc., but I'm being pursued almost like a criminal, and I'm not. And with all the monies that have been spent to find something wrong that I've done, nobody has showed me what is it that I've done. But I can tell you, you listen to the radio, you listen to and look at the TV, and everywhere. Zuma is corrupt. Zuma is corrupt. People who hate me for other things try to use the system to rubbish me, to destroy me. That is the only worry that I have. And that's why I've said, fine, I served 10 years, in my view, when I committed no crime except to fight for my freedom. And I'm saying now, I'm ready to go to court to prove my innocence. And perhaps my going to court might show other people who did few other things, but that's not my story. If at all, again, the judiciary in this country don't like Zuma. They want to put Zuma in court. I would go there and serve, knowing, and I would be conscious, my conscience would be very free. I've never done any. But if there's a judge who feels I did something wrong, they've said so before, it would not be the first. I hope it will be the last.
No, you know, it's an interesting turn of events. And the reason why it's interesting for me, because for the longest period, I've looked at it and I've experienced the journey of what I believe as well, unfair treatment, persecution, and just general unnecessary, uncalled for, unwarranted, negative media coverage of yourself. You know, it takes me back to the mid-90s, where I remember the first bits of negative publicity regarding yourself. And that would have been your relationship at that time with Shapir Shaikh. And that was a period. And it was almost 2-3 times a month it would pop up. But now these are news headlines and news clippings and general news on the TV that we come across as your children, as youngsters coming up. And you know, it affects us in many ways. you know, because for the longest period, even up until now, discussions around your name and subsequently my name now are dinner table conversations. People conversing on their views, whether the views be one-sided or not, but just general discussions. And why I say it's interesting is, never mind it affecting us as it did, because it did affect us. It's not easy reading about these things. It's not easy experiencing it when you meet up with other people and they have these comments that are very negative towards yourself. You come up in life, you learn how to deal with you know, you need to develop some sort of guard against these things. Thick skin, emotional armor, whatever it is that works for that person dealing with it. And the whole time I've looked at you and I've wondered, but how do you deal with these things? Because, you know, it's been a non-stop, and you've been on record saying that a non-stop barrage of just legal cases, media speculation, media reporting, and now the funny part is, fast forward many years down the line, I'm driving down the road and I look at news articles. You know, you see them; those are the the most interesting ones. The headlines on the lamp poles on the side of the road, on just the main roads that run through the cities and suburbs. And now I'm reading about myself. So now I'm going through it in first person now. So it's no longer reading about you. Now I'm reading very similar things that were mentioned about you, about myself. And I'm like, okay, it's game on. This is it. This is serious. You know, so it's no more I'm removed from the issue. I am part of the fodder that's being consumed out there. I've also had my experiences, unfortunately, with the law, with the judiciary, and you know, I haven't been on record. I haven't said much about it, but I've had my experiences. It's been public. My experience with my own court cases. There was a culpable homicide case that I had to go through. There's the bribery and corruption and fraud case that I had to go through regarding the former Deputy Minister of Finance. And, you know, I looked at it and, you know, I've obviously got my views on the way it was handled. I think it was handled in a very suspicious manner. I've raised these concerns with the relative authorities. But once again, sitting and going through that experience, it's quite, the anxiety levels are super high, because you realize and you know that this is not a straight, clear-cut case. I experienced it for the first time myself, the level of politicking that happened around my cases, the level of exposure and public interest that was given to those cases individually. And you realize this is serious. This is not just presenting a case, a defense case purely from a legal perspective, but there are a lot of background political plays at hand, and how to skip around those. So I also just wanted to touch upon it. And in this case, to a certain degree, I can say I feel your pain. We don't run away from these issues. We confront them, because that's who we are. We'll never run away from what's being thrown at us. We are fighters. This is where we come from, and we'll continue to fight for what is right. We'll continue to fight for our own lives, for our own narrative. So I feel your pain, man. I feel your pain. I just wanted to tell you that I feel your pain.
I'm sure you feel my pain. You know, I am a warrior. I was made to become a warrior, not necessarily for the struggle as such. My nature, my culture, my everything and I'm able to stomach things. But I can tell you what you are relating. The pains that have been inflicted on me are too severe to talk about. You can imagine. Some people don't know. When you have got children who suffer because their father is being tossed around in one form or the other.
Suffered in silence, man. Suffered in proper silence.
Yeah.
We suffered in silence.
Exactly. Suffering in real silence. And I'm sure many people are hearing you for the first time, that what has been done to me, it has impacted so negatively to all of you.
Yes.
But people are not worried about that. They continue. They don't know what we have gone through as a child. They don't know. When I tell the story, for an example, one day in the dark, I took an AK against you without knowing that it was you in the dark. I could have shot you with an AK-47.
Easy.
How much? Because I had something walking, and I thought the enemy was in the room, and it was you walking in the dark. People don't know all of this.
I'm glad you didn't shoot
once you grow up, because they want me to feel the pain, they think they must now transfer that pain to you. It's cruelty in the manner, even if you try to explain that there is nothing that you have done which is wrong. As long as we are Jacob Zuma's child, you must be persecuted to the last degree. You know, when we discussed with you, I said there is no case against you. And I said, take the view that come and face them. They would have no judges. And indeed, when you came, they had no judges. They would have wanted you.
They made me sweat, though. They made me sweat. I'll give it to them.
Exactly.
No.
So it is more painful because it is becoming obvious now, that this persecution has some reasons against me. And I believe I know the reasons why some people will want me out of the way. That is what is painful then, that during democracy, I must feel as I do. And there must be people who act as they do. And some people will actually say, look, sorry that we are doing this to you. But the powers that be say we must do it. So I know what you have gone through as I have. And I know that there's not a single child of mine who can say he has enjoyed